Hailey Mendoza was inspired to learn more about production design and concept visuals after attending a Flying Lotus show in 2015. I have no idea who Flying Lotus is. You'll have to tell me about that.
Look it up.
In her last semester at Cal State Long Beach, she started an internship at VTPro Design and has been a key member of that creative team for 5 years now. The skill set has grown to include robot animation, and she's now a designer who's focused on 3D animation and robotics, and who has worked on high-profile projects such as the MTV Vmas in 2019. She's also created interactive content to be projected on the Red Rocks Amphitheater in Denver this past summer. Okay, the woman in the shark. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Evan, one, for that amazing presentation, and also for making Mimic. I am living proof that you don't have to be a roboticist to animate a robot, and I'm going to take you through our robot pipeline today. So I'm very excited. So a little about me. My name's Hailey, and like you heard and probably noticed, I love sharks, but also I started off in graphic design in college, so getting my BFA at Cal State Long Beach, but I kind of realized halfway through that graphic design wasn't really my passion, and I wanted to focus more on 3D animation and ultimately making concert visuals. So after that Flying Lotus show, I downloaded Cinema 4D and started watching as many YouTube tutorials as I could and just learning as much as I could. And I found myself interning at VT shortly after, where again, I came in with minimal knowledge, but again, the hope to learn as much as I could. So 5 years later, I'm a full-on 3D generalist, working on robot jobs, but also a variety of other jobs as well. But I have to say that robot animation has been my favorite skill that I've picked up. But enough about me, a bit about VTPro Design. We are a design technology company that looks to inspire audiences through a deep focus on user experience and storytelling. And sometimes these stories we tell involve robots, sometimes they don't. But when they do involve robots, it's a full team effort. And this spans across 4 of our departments: creative, which is what I'm in, which is the robot animation and concept; engineering, which is designing and fabricating all the custom mounts and end effectors for each job; creative tech, they use Touch Designer to trigger all of our robots live; and then the shop, they physically build and install everything we make in our shop in Los Angeles. So it is a full team effort. It truly takes a village. But today I'm going to break down that pipeline for you for one of our craziest jobs we've ever done, which was the MTV Vmas. We took 5 of our bots to the Prudential Center in New Jersey to take over the presenter stage. And the creative goal with this was to have these 2 KR150s holding LED screens, and they acted as a portal or a doorway that these presenters could walk through and present the VMA to. So we also had we brought 2 lighting bots along that were also the large KR150s, and then also a tiny KR16 for our camera bots. So we've never really had a job where we're controlling so many bots at once with so many different variables. You know, this is a live show, so we had this is a new format for us to work in, but and I'm going to break down kind of what each part was and the challenges that came with them. So starting off, we start with engineering, and they are figuring out, how do we anchor the robots to the stage, and how are we fabricating these custom end effectors? What do we need to make for this job? And this ended up being our final build. You know, it's recommended that the KUKA bots are anchored to a concrete floor, but that's not really an option for us, or really on any job that we do. So we have to get creative with it. And engineering had the task of figuring out how to mount these 5 bots safely to our stage. And note, the lighting bots on top are mounted like 17 feet in the air. and that right one's on like an uneven surface. So this was definitely a big engineering task for them. But once they got it under control, figured it out, they sent us our 3D models, and that's where creative really steps in and my job starts. We built our 3D scenes in Maya. We animated the 5 robots using Mimic, and then also validating and checking everything with Mimic. And just to really echo what Evan was saying, we love Mimic at VTPro. It truly is an amazing tool that we rely on heavily. The simple UI that it comes with, starting out, again, I come from a Cinema 4D background, and Maya was pretty intimidating first. There's just a lot to take in, and I love the simple UI that's just sitting for you, where you have everything you need and you only need to focus really on that window. And then there's a bunch of workflow tools, the ability to customize scripts, build presets, saving all of our custom rigs to a robot library, or, sharing home poses with other animators working on the job, and all the analytic tools they offer just makes our lives so much easier. And allows us to really focus on the creative and less on the technical, which isn't really, creative team's strong point. So we greatly appreciate that. And they also have a really amazing online community, which we go to a lot. The Slack channel is poppin'. So if you want to get on there and learn Mimic, that is a great place to start. And so that is why we use Mimic. Oh yeah, it's free, so you can't beat that. But moving on. So this is kind of, once we get our 3D scene in check and we're ready to start animating, we start pre-visualizing everything. This is an example previs render that we'd send off to a client. And this just allows us to see what's going on, making sure, everything's in the correct place, making sure we're not hitting anything. This previs stage is extremely important. And starting this stage, we really had to starting this process, we really had to break down, what is the most important feature of this stage. And that was our screen bots. Oh, there we go. So our biggest challenge with our screen bots were how do we make these screens appear as seamless as possible, and then break apart in this epic reveal for someone to walk through. And because this was for live TV, pretty much the main note we were getting was faster, faster, faster. We had to be on a strict timeline. So we really pushed the speed limits with these bots, and Mimic's tools really helped us make sure we weren't going over those limits. And because our tool controller, our screen, for example, has to be in a specific location, we really stuck with heavy IK paths on this one. And a little more. This is just a typical scene file that we go through. And you can see the little Mimic window in the corner. We also played with some really fun parenting techniques on this one. We wanted to have the screens, rotate from the center or rotate from the corner. And it was really easy to set up that parent constraint and just, start switching parents and getting really cool effects with these screens. So this corner pin look really utilized that technique. And here is the final shot from the actual live show. It was a challenge to get those corners to stick together, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're going to move on to our lighting bots. And these were meant to be like an accent, a crown of the stage. I like to think of them as kind of the backup dancers for our screen bots. And we had to make sure these bots were moving very slow. We had a lot of position restrictions. We couldn't put a lot of weight towards the back. We could only really live in the front zone because of the way it was mounted so high up on top of the stage. So a lot of just checking those limits and making sure we're in a safe zone to run these bots. But we found ourselves doing a lot of FK moves for these just because, we really didn't care about where the lighting bot was or the end effector was, but more so just where our robot was in space. So this was a fun one. And then, like I said, I thought of them as the backup dancers. They were kind of in the background, but at the last minute, the director was like, hey, we're going to put Red Man up on the second floor. And, we want the lighting bots to turn around and dance behind him while he's performing. So that was a really cool moment where they got to have their shining moment. But moving on to the Cambot, which I think is our most important piece of this puzzle. And the Cambot kind of had two very important jobs. It acted as a live feed for the broadcast, so it was really important to have smooth, dynamic camera moves, something that a normal cameraman wouldn't be able to get. And then we use this data, we were able to export, bake out our animations and send this over to Possible Productions, who was doing all of the animations for the VMAs this year. So we worked very closely with them, exporting, all of our paths. And I have a look that I think really highlights that. Oh, too fast. There we go. So we have this nice animation and the screens are together, and then you get this kind of like mitosis animation effect while they split apart. And they were really animating animating based off of our screen motion. So that was really cool to see. And the 3D effects they were able to get by mapping that content to the perspective of our Cambot really sold this look through, and I think just made the stage a lot more dynamic. And it was great to see what they came up with for our screen bots. So, and then here's a shot of our Cambot in action. We've had him in some really funky positions because, the KR16 doesn't have a lot of reach. We had to get to the center of the stage. So we were fully extended pretty much the entire time with this guy. So a lot of fun to animate. But once we're done with our animation process, the validation process is very important. And this is these were the tools and the graphs I was talking about earlier. We're so thankful that we have these. These are your best friend when animating robots, and it allows you to take apart each axis, see what's going on, see where your problem areas are. If there's any errors, we want to work that out all before we send our paths over to creative tech. I feel like I spend half of my time animating and the other half validating. So this is a very important step in our pipeline, and we're thankful that we have these tools to help us out. So once all of our checks are passed, we hand our exported Emily files over to creative tech, and they're in charge of calibration, synchronizing all of our bots, and they actually built in some new safety features so we could run these live. The calibration process is a long one, and after our shop sets up all of the robots and gets everything plugged in, we have to calibrate and make sure their world position matches ours. So we needed to be sub-millimeter precise, especially for those screen bots getting so close. So they came up with a technique using a laser and a magnet, and we used a laser and kind of attached the magnet to this, the end effector, and we're able, through the power of math, to calculate the robot's positions relative to each other and then adjust accordingly in our Maya scenes. And so there's a lot of back and forth going on, adjusting, and it's a slow process, but a very important one nonetheless. So next, we use Touch Designer and Creative Tech. They are very smart, and they create all custom components, use a lot of Python code, a lot of stuff I do not understand, to control not only the bots, but also sometimes what's on the end effector, and they're sending commands to our bots in real time. So we use Touch Designer for a lot of pretty much every creative tech job we do. So very powerful tool that's also in our pipeline. But the soft pause button, which is something new for this project as well, very, very important. Usually in the past, we've worked with kind of like a hard stop button, and it just completely stops anything in case of emergency, but it kind of took a while to recover from that. And because we're on this live schedule, if something happened and we had to stop, we needed to be able to recover immediately from that. So that's Charlie in the top left. He was the commander of our robot fleet during the show, triggering everything live. And he also wrote custom software for this button, and engineering also developed custom hardware as well, so we could pause safely and then resume immediately after. And here's a little screenshot. you can see the arrow is where our front of house was. And then that circle next to it was me ready to go with a button. And then the circle in the top left was Dom, another of our, one of our coworkers on the job. And we were, you know, in angles so we can see every part of the stage, and we're just ready to stop whenever we needed to. I think we stopped it 3 times, but they worked flawlessly, and thankfully no one got hurt. So that was a big goal of ours. And this is the final look I'm going to show you guys. You know, it takes all of these steps, all of these different people, these different programs for us to produce something like this. This was truly a job that really pushed our capabilities forward so much in robotics. And it was really amazing to see kind of how we accomplished this, because yeah, it was definitely a fun one. And here's a little video of us afterwards, after our show, when we hit all of our cues, no mistakes, no one was hurt. We were very happy after this. And then right after this video, we had to take everything down and go home to LA. So on to the next one, right? But I think I have time to share just one more little sneak peek of a job. This is an unreleased robot project with our most recent collaboration with Gmonk. This was intended for Off 2020, a creative conference in Barcelona, but because of COVID, it was canceled. So the release date was postponed. I've been sitting on this one for like all of the pandemic, so I'm so excited to share this with you guys. And it's essentially a short film directed by Gmonk, and where our 4 KR150 bots are the stars in this epic, like post-apocalyptic sci-fi robot drama. It's very intense. And we actually wrapped production on this the final day before lockdown, that Friday before everything shut down. So we were very lucky to have this job finished. And here's a little behind the scenes look with, we had a lot of fun engineering new laser head custom end effectors for our bots. So that was an exciting challenge. And we got to do some really cool set design as well, and really got to put our animation skills to the test with this one, and being able to, you know, tell Gmonk's story through the movement of our robots using Mimic was such a exciting opportunity on this one. So look out for that. And you can check out more jobs that we do online. I'm going to leave you with a video of me on a shark, mechanical bull, and behind me is 2 robots waving flags on a loop, and there's a KR16 recording all of it. This was for our 4th of July party in our shop, and of course we had to set up a robot photo booth. So you can check out more from us at VTProDesign.com, and you can contact me at Hailey at VTPro Design. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to share our robot workflow with you guys.
Thanks, Hailey. What is with you and sharks?
I love sharks. Before I was a graphic design major, I was actually a marine biology major, a failed one. So
Really?
yes.
Yeah.